Jay, you've got some really interesting thoughts to bring in a guy that's never been a head coach to coach this particular team with this particular salary structure at this particular time.
So Silas is a good coach. I've known of him for a while. Spent time with Rick Carlisle. Luka Doncic really likes him. Spent time with Steve Clifford, obviously the son of Paul Silas. The interesting play here, though, is was this a choice that was made due to his ability to connect to James Harden and Russell Westbrook? I really do believe that this is a rebuilding mode that the Houston Rockets are in. And when you're in rebuilding mode, the question is, when you have $80 million of your salary tied up into two individuals, how much room does that really give you to move and to make things happen? It seems like the Rockets' only tradable asset is Russell Westbrook. Because of what he can probably get you in return. Eric Gordon, he's been banged up with injuries. Robert Covington, he's owed $36 million over the next 2 years or so. He's talented, but it's not the same piece as Russell Westbrook. So I guess the question comes, Key, it's not even the question, it's more of a statement. I do not believe we're going to see James Harden win a world championship in Houston. I just do not. I mean, you're not going to have them over the Lakers next year. You're not going to have them over the Clippers next year. You're not going to have them over Golden State next year. I think Denver will be a better team next year because they're built more for the playoffs, unless they make some crazy moves and get the right pieces. But I don't know how you get the right pieces unless you use Russell Westbrook as a trade asset.
The field is obviously stacked in the West. There's no question about it. I mean, you failed to mention, not failed, but you didn't mention Dallas, right? You didn't
Dallas
mention,
too. Yep.
And so when you look at it, Portland, Utah, when you start to look at where they're at as an organization and as a team in the makeup of the team, yes, you can move Westbrook or you can move James Harden, whoever you want to move. What are you getting back in return? In order to win a championship, you got to have stars. You got to have some snack, crackle, pop, and some star power. You could trade one of your stars in Westbrook. Let's use him as an example. But what are you getting back in return, right? We've seen James Harden by himself as the Lone Ranger. It hasn't worked out. You add something to him other than a Westbrook, for instance, who is that going to be? Like, what big piece are you going to get that's going to get them past a LeBron James and AD or Kawhi Leonard and the PG or the makeup of Golden State that we see, yet we haven't seen everything with them. We see what they have, but they got the number 2 pick in the draft. They may be making moves behind closed doors. All of a sudden, that number 2 pick turns into something else. They get stronger. So when you start to look at it, what's the best fit? Let's just move him. What's the best fit for Westbrook? Where does he fit? Who would want to acquire that? There's a team here in, I'm almost at LA, here in New York, like the Knicks, that need some snack, crackle, pop, need somewhat of a leader, a guy that potentially could do some things and energize a franchise, and maybe you could grab a few pieces and put them around him, but does he fit in what Tibbs wants to do as a basketball player? Because he's not sure roles that Tibbs had in Chicago, where he was basically he was the field general. He was the floor. He was the point guard. Westbrook doesn't fit in that traditional guard mode. He's more of a scoring 2 guard.
Well, Russ, I mean, look, I think Russ would fit in New York City. He's a triple-double machine.
The city, but what about the city? But what about what Tibbs wants to do on the floor?
I actually think Russ and Tibbs will work well together. Russ seems like he's built DNA-wise similar to Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler, that kind of rough, that tough, in-your-face, relentless attitude 24/7, that's how Russ plays. Now, I hear what your question is. If you're your Knicks, what are you willing to give up? I mean, you're willing to give up a lot of stuff. You're willing to give up Alfred Payton, Bobby Portis, throw Kevin Knox in there, throw a second-round pick, throw a first-round pick in 2022. You're willing to make moves in order to wheel and deal. And then if you're Houston, if you're using that and some of those pieces come off the books, what other big-time free agent could you target? Could you go after? I don't know what the answers are right now, but it still seems like there's so many moving parts, right? Like it felt like Ty Lue was supposed to be the guy to go to Houston. That didn't work out. Really happy for Coach Silas. First head coaching opportunity, right? He's been assistant coach in the league for 20 years. Incredible pedigree. But at the same time, you're having 2 guys who people expect to win yesterday. The whole narrative on James Harden is He's the guy that can do it for you throughout the regular season, but can't do it to you in the playoffs. So if you're James Harden, you're getting to that point. How much longer do I give time here in Houston to a rebuilding process before I start thinking about if the goal is to win a championship, if you don't feel confident in leadership in Houston, where do I go? Who do I partner with to actually help me achieve my goal?
Let me ask you this. So if I'm James Harden now, we moved on from Westbrook. Now I'm James Harden, and I'm not getting.
I still don't even see it working next year with Russell Westbrook there.
No. I'm saying I'm James Harden. I said
Okay.
We've moved on from the conversation of Westbrook. Now let's have a conversation about James Harden. If I'm James Harden and I feel that this isn't working out in Houston, but I'm ball dominant, I'm a scoring machine, where do I go? Who's willing to absorb that cost? Could it be a Milwaukee? Could Milwaukee say,
wow, him and Giannis together
put him
would be
with
an incredible
Giannis maybe?
package. Giannis likes the ball in transition, likes the ball in isolated situations. James and him together, wow, you can't stop that.
Those are some great.
I would get out of the West. Steph and Clay ain't going nowhere, right? The Clippers are going to be there for a while. It seems like Bron got another 2, 3, 4 years in him. With AD, they're able to retain AD. Denver's only getting better with Jokic and Jamal Murray. Utah's getting good. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert and company.
Luke and the Mavs.
Chris Paul to the Lakers. Better. Chris Paul going to the Lakers.
The West is loaded, man. I sit there and look at the East. Okay, Miami, Boston, Milwaukee, Philly is trying to make changes, but it seems more open.
You're right.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.